Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you should not. Apologies for this delay. Just had this technical issue with the computer. Had to restart everything again. I'm sorry to start this one late. But the good news, the good thing to start with is that Canada has hit the 40 million population mark. Isn't that awesome? I know somewhere down there, India is saying, yeah, that's cute. India is saying, yeah, that's like as big as one of our smaller states. But for Canada, it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's first time, obviously, first time, right? Because it's got to be first time. It's in the history that Canada has touched the 40 million population mark. Very quickly going through this one, on June 16th, which was yesterday, there are now 40 million Canadians. This is a historic milestone for Canada and certainly a cause for celebration. Now, let's see what kind of celebrations are sparked out across the country. This website, which is of the Stats Canada, will also, if you want to sort of check this out, they've made a nice video about the history of Canada and how the population rose. I'm not going to bore you with that one, but if you wish to sort of give it a look, you should try and it's always nice to know what was happening, what's been happening here. From 1894, when there were 5 million people, to now 2023, there are 40 million people. The numbers have grown, and obviously the biggest reason for this growth goes to the immigration. So as they say, immigration is really helping Canada on its way to. Some people are quite optimistic to reach 100 million population mark by 2050. Let's see how that happens. If I'm around, I'll keep doing this, and we'll hope to see that day come as well. But for the time being, let's get started with our weekly roundup. Starting with the quote of the week: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. He was a legendary ice hockey player. And this is so true. If any shot that you don't take, you've already missed it, right? So what does that mean? That means like you got to give it a shot. If you don't do that, if you don't even try, you obviously are not going to get there anyways, right? Things like, you've seen those advertisements, right? Puchne mein kya jata hai, right? Karne mein kya jata hai. Let's at least do it, and then you will figure out whether it worked out for you or not. If nothing else, you would have learned a lesson as to what not to do or how not to do a certain things. For example, when Albert Einstein was asked, like, what made him tick, how things happened, he had a similar answer to give. That there are so many ways that the things will not work, and you only need to find that one way where things will work for you, and that's the way to go. But you will never find that one way until you have tried. So please keep going. Please keep doing things that you need to do, because that's the only way to get there. Stay up to date on Canadian immigration news and trends. Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, PNP and updates are the news, question and answers. That's how we will roll today. PNP draws, starting with that one. Saskatchewan. On the 8th of June, Saskatchewan held its first draw of the month. Already about 9 days have passed, but let's talk about this. Province invited 500 candidates under the two programs, which is OID, Occupation in Demand, and Express Entry. And they invited 268 candidates from Express Entry. They invited 232 from the OID stream, and the candidates were nominated only, obviously, if you have that NOC code, which has been identified as a targeted NOC code or targeted occupation. The minimum score for this draw was 69. Now, these were the NOC codes that were selected for this particular draw, 11202. Now, some of these NOC codes have not been invited in the past, so it was a good thing to see that the NOC codes are now being changed by Saskatchewan. Earlier, they had sort of repeatedly drawn out few NOC codes, but now this time, some additional NOC codes have been included, including 11202, professional occupations in advertising, supervisors in supply chain, procurement, production, mechanical engineers. Then you also have business development officers, welders, manufacturing managers, supervisors in food and beverage processing. Some of these NOC codes, as I said, were not invited earlier, so I'm glad to see that they're getting also a shot at it. Alberta also conducted a draw on the 8th of June. They invited 150 candidates, with the priority sector of the NOC codes being in agriculture, occupation, or French as the first language. Invited candidates had a CRS score of at least 382. Because they do not publish the exact criteria, or they do not publish exactly what NOC codes have been invited, we never really get a chance of understanding what that is. But this is Alberta is always your lucky draw kind of a thing. Therefore, you should always have an active express entry profile, because you never know, your profile might be the one that Alberta shows interest in. British Columbia on the 13th of June also invited 170 candidates to apply for the BC PNP. This was a general draw with scores ranging from 87 to 107. 41 additional invitations were sent out to candidates in the healthcare and childcare occupations with scores as low as 60. Manitoba on the 15th of June invited 540 candidates through their 3 different streams. Certain occupations were targeted under one of the streams, and scores were ranged from 602 for the occupation specific stream to 718 for the skilled worker over stream. Very high there, but that's how it rolls, right? Because of such a high demand, so many candidates, so many people are entering the pool, and therefore the scores remain quite high. Of all these invitations issued, 187 went to candidates who had an active express entry profile, which basically means once the nominations are issued, these 187 candidates would get 600 points in the express entry profile, and hence they can submit their application through the express entry. The remaining would have to apply non-express entry route. Prince Edward Islands on the 15th of June also conducted the draw. Labor market and express entry candidates were, this was under the labor market and the express entry stream. For Prince Edward Islands, they usually conduct their draw once a month. Their schedule is always announced. It's already published on their website. The only thing with Prince Edward Islands is that you have to create your profile. You have to create your account on the Prince Edward Islands website. A lot of people have a lot of expectations and hope, because PNPs are not that easy anymore. And with Prince Edward Islands, the thing is that though it doesn't say there, and in most cases you'll be wondering why didn't you get invited, because the score was something which you met with. The thing is that Prince Edward Islands usually tends to favor people who are already living, working, studying in their province. So the chances for anybody who's not in Prince Edward Islands to get invited is quite rare and unheard of, but you can always get lucky. So always do, give yourself a shot, right? That's the whole point. And make your profile on Prince Edward Islands portal as well, but don't pin your hopes on it. It can happen. Stranger things are known to have happened, but don't pin your hopes on it. But that's the Prince Edward Island draw. 4 business impact candidates were also invited in this draw. Other news, we have few things to talk about there as well. There is an update on the 700 international students who are facing deportation from Canada. Now, I know the news, media, articles everywhere, this whole thing is about this 700 international. Actually, it's not 700. From what I understand, the number is much higher. The investigations are ongoing. Earlier, so to give you a background, the so-called 700, so it's not 700, and these deportations, these inquiries have been going on for quite some time. It's not like suddenly it's happened in 2023. These have been up and about for a very long time. Now, what's happening with these is that these international students went to an agent in India, and they expressed their intention of wanting to study in Canada. The agent scammed them. That's what the story is, that the agent cheated them by giving them fake college acceptance letters. Their applications were approved, so that was the first issue that has to be addressed as to IRCC not having validated those acceptance letters, but did actually approve these applications. These candidates came to Canada. Once they came to Canada, the agent then told them that please do not go to that college. Your admission has been cancelled because you were late, because the program was changed, because the seats are full. We are going to send you to a different location, to a different college. And the students never really realized what's happening. And they went on to a different college. They studied, they completed their studies. And only when they were applying for their permanent residence or through different processes of inquiries, they were started getting letters from CBSA to appear for a hearing. That's when they realized that the first visa, as a student visa that they obtained, was through a fake or a scammed or a fraudulent document, and therefore they were being deported. They were being removed from Canada. A lot of them actually then filed for relief from the federal court as well. Even the federal court was not in their favor, because at the end of the day, even if you're using a consultant, even if you're using a lawyer, even if you're using an agent, no matter who it is your responsibility as an applicant that everything that goes in your application is true, all the documents are genuine, And even if the consultant, agent, lawyer makes a mistake, screws it up, it's on you. Yeah, the agent, you can go and hold their neck and tell them, how did you do this, what did you do this, but at the end of the day, it's you, your application and your future which is online. Therefore, first, choose your agent, consultant, lawyer carefully. When you deal with unscrupulous individuals, the chances are they're treating you as a guinea pig, testing on your heads to see and learn and experiment. And if something goes wrong, you basically will have no say. You will not be able to go to any regulatory body. You will not be able to do anything about it. So that's why that's the first area that you need to be careful about. Secondly, know what goes in your application. There are so many agents, consultants, lawyers who will not tell you what all documents have been submitted, or even if they will give you the submitted documents, they will not give you their submission letter. They will not tell you what have we filed as part of your submission letter. It's your right. It's your absolute right to have every single document, every single information that's gone in your application. You should ask for it, have a copy of it, because God forbid tomorrow something goes wrong, you should have a full record of what went into your application. Now, pro tip for those people who are always wondering, my agent has submitted the application 2 years, 3 years, 4 years back. I do not know what went in my application. What do I do about it? Well, you can apply for ATIP notes. ATIP stands for Access to Information and Privacy, or also called as GCMS notes, for the full, complete file, including all your documents. It may take a little bit longer, but with a fee, you can get this document. So which basically means IRCC is going to will send you the complete record of what they have on file for that application. So you will get every single document, copy of every single document back, and that way you will know what forms were completed, what information was filled out on your behalf, and what documents were submitted. That way you will be more informed. But however, let's come back to these 700 international students. So what IRCC has now done, after a lot of political pressure, and obviously, right, the students who were victimized, they were demonstrating in Brampton and several other places, and there was a lot of how politics is, right? So politics always plays the game. So the Conservative Party, the NDP, and all these guys made a guest appearance trying to sort of show empathy, sympathy with the whole student issue, because all they wanted was to sort of make a noise, get their own faces out on the cameras. But anyways, it worked, and that's what matters. What that has done is now IRCC, Sean Fraser, the Minister of Immigration, has held a recent media release where he said that they are setting up a task force. So first of all, they have put on hold all deportations, so nobody will be deported here on. Everybody has been given a temporary relief. All right, that's the first thing. It's temporary relief. It doesn't mean that deportations have been cancelled. Secondly, they said they're going to establish a task force comprising of some senior government officials from IRCC and CBSA, where each case would be reviewed, would be analyzed, would be checked, would be investigated, each one. And thereby, they would identify, or they would look to seek more information, more evidence to support. So the students here would have to present more evidence to show that they were the ones who were victimized, that they were not complicit. If it is decided, identified, agreed upon that these students were victims, they were not really part of the scam, they did not know, they genuinely did not know what the hell was going on, then they would be given relief. Their work permits, their study permits, or their temporary residence in Canada would be extended so that they can continue, with the whatever pathway they wish to go with. If obviously an individual was identified to be complicit, if it was identified this person never had any intention to study in Canada. So basically what they will be looking for from these students is to prove that they were genuine students, that they have completed their education, that they scored well, that they did not really, just land in Canada, forget about the college, now that I'm not having it, let's go and work, never studied. All those kind of activities that would show that those persons or those people were never really interested in studying. They use that as a way to come to Canada, and hence those people can look forward to going back and face the law as it was intended to. But this, for the time being, has given a relief to those students, and therefore they will not face deportation at this point of time. But it is still the onus, the burden of proof is still on those students to provide documents, evidence to show that they were not complicit. And this also brings to limelight IRCC as to what the hell is going on with their departments. Why weren't these acceptance letters checked in the first place. I mean, these are not just 5, 10, 7, 15, 20, 30 people, right? 700 are here. There are a lot of people who have already been sent back. They didn't make a noise. Nobody supported them. So they were asked to leave. They left, whether they thought there was no resolution or whether they didn't have enough money to hire a lawyer and file a case in judicial for a judicial review, or take any legal route, and they have left. The minister has said that those individuals would also have the same resolution option if they can prove that they were genuinely involved in studies, that they may have a chance to return back to Canada and they may not face a 5-year ban. Overall, I would think it's a very sensible and a logical way of resolving this situation. What it should not do is set a wrong precedence. That's the only concern. But as long as the genuine students who really were a victim of this whole situation, they have a chance to sort of mend their ways and mend this whole situation and look forward to living in Canada peacefully, then that should basically be the right way to do, right? So overall, a good way to sort of end this situation or end this deadlock. Hopefully we will hear more about this in terms of the better news out of this one. New law to promote Francophone immigration. Now, this one is a new bill. C-13 was introduced and passed, and it was for the first time immigration into the. So for the first time, the languages have been introduced into the immigration as Official Languages Act. OLA, as it is referred to, is the federal statute that made English and French the official languages of Canada. Now, what this basically is meant for is that over a period of time, statistics have revealed that the Francophone immigration, the number of Francophones outside Quebec is largely a French-speaking province of Canada. So the presence of Francophones outside the province of Quebec has actually declined. It used to be 3.7%. It has gone down to 3.3%. And immigration, Sean Fraser, Minister of Immigration, has a mandate to increase the Francophones outside Quebec, right? And therefore, there you can already see, right, so many steps are being taken across Canada to encourage, to basically improve the number of Francophones or number of French speakers outside the Quebec area. Provinces are already conducting draws. I showed you Alberta made a draw also with for people who had French as the first language. Ontario frequently conducts draws for French speakers, right? And they are also encouraging more and more Francophones outside Quebec. Not only this, under this OLA, it has also been decided that all the judges should be bilingual, therefore granting fair and equal access to all people in Canada who speak French as well as English. But not only that, IRCC has stated that they are on their way to meet the target of 4.4% of the total immigrants being Francophones outside Quebec area. So that will basically mean that as and how we look at the new immigration programs, as and how we look at the new category-based draws, you will definitely see a big push to the French-speaking categories. So if you are still on that fence thinking, what should I do with the French language? Should I go in there, not go in there? Then, I mean, I'm still not sure what exactly you're waiting for. And just opening up something here. As we move forward, we would also obviously see more programs coming through which will help French speakers migrate to Canada. There was another one that I needed to talk to you about and that was the Francophone Mobility Program. Now, this one has happened. Let's see if I can bring this up. I can, yes. There you go. Francophone Mobility Program comes under the International Mobility Program of Canada. Now, under this, what happens is that if you are a French speaker, and if you are able to obtain a job offer. Now, this job offer does not need an LMIA. You only need to find an employer who is willing to offer you a job. You need to be a French speaker. Earlier, before the 14th of June, what used to happen is that this Francophone Mobility Program was available only to NOC codes tier 0, 1, 2, 3, okay, not to tier 4 or 5. However, effective 15th of June, even tier 4 and tier 5 categories have been included, and the requirement of French language has been reduced from CLB 7 to CLB 5. That's it. CLB 5 is all you need if you can get a job offer in any NOC code 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any NOC. So that is a big gamut of NOC codes available to you. big range of job opportunities available to you. All you need to do is convince an employer that you can offer your services. They don't need an LMIA. This is an LMIA exempt position. They just need to go to the employer portal, pay a fee of only 230 Canadian dollars as the employer compliance fee. Using that, you would be able to apply for your work permit directly on IRCC website. All you need to do is prove a couple of things. One, that you have the employer job offer with the compliance fee paid. But what you need to prove is obviously that if you're being made a job offer, let's say as a food services supervisor, you need to have work experience background to prove that you can perform that job. That's the first requirement. Second is your language exams. Provide your language exams in French, CLB5. If you can do better than CLB5, that's even better, right? But this is something which is really, really good. And this is their way of encouraging more Francophones to come to Canada and work in Canada. And I mean, you can get a work permit so easily. I mean, did you ever think you don't need an LMI? And mind you, if you complete 1 year of work experience as in this particular job in Canada, and your employer is willing to give you a job offer which says that this job offer is valid for 1 year after you become PR, you just may be also able to take points for your job offer. The 50 points that you get for your job offer, you will also be able to take that in your express entry and pop your uncle, as they say. And then that way you can then gain those extra points, apply an express entry, and not only that, French speakers category, right? Even that will give you an advantage. So overall, as you can see, big push being given for the Francophones and for the Francophone mobility programs here in Canada. All right, what other news? We have the news that the requirement for biometrics for PR application is back effective June 14th. What does that mean? On 14th of June, the public policy exempting foreign nationals with previous biometrics on file who are applying for permanent residence from the biometric have basically there is that whole exemption has been lifted and the changes to GCMS have been restored. Now, what does mean is that pre-pandemic, before this whole COVID-19 thing happened, even if you would have completed your biometrics for visitor visa, study visa, work permit, you still had to give your biometrics again if you are applying for permanent residence. But when the COVID came, they put this requirement on hold. Everybody was exempted. If you have active valid biometrics on file, which were given within the last 10 years, then as a permanent resident applicant, you did not need to do your biometrics again. However, that exemption has now been lifted, which basically means that if you have submitted an application on the June 14th or after June 14th, then you may have to redo your medicals or give your medicals again, even if you have active biometrics again. You have to give your biometrics again, even if your biometrics were completed within the last 10 years. Okay. I'm not sure why this is done. I mean, if they could do without this requirement for the last 3-4 years, then why now again bring it back? Biometrics are the same, right? I mean, it's the same. This is not going to change for a person. So whether you are taking these biometrics, and the process is the same. You go to the VFS, you get your biometrics done. And why would it be different for a visit visa and then now again for a PR application? I don't understand the logic, but it's a requirement and you have to do it. So you'll have to do your biometrics again if you have submitted your PR application on the 14th of June or after 14th of June. Be prepared to sort of receive a biometrics request from IRCC. And from there on, then obviously complete your biometrics. Point to be noted, Milord, that biometrics can be done anywhere in the world. There is no restriction. For example, you submit an application from India, you are traveling to Dubai, you get a biometrics request, you can go to Dubai and give your biometrics. You live normally in Pakistan, you are visiting somebody in Indonesia, Malaysia, you can give your biometrics in Indonesia, Malaysia. There is no problem. You can be in any country. That has no bearing, no issues, no problem whatsoever. Same applies for medicals. You can also complete your medicals anywhere in the world. If you're living in the US, you plan to go for a holiday to India, you can do your medicals in India. They're also cheaper. In the US, the medicals cost about $350 at this point of time. In India, you can only pay 5,000 rupees and complete your medical. So yes, medicals, biometrics, both of these are required. For the time being, medicals, if you are inside Canada, regardless of your application type, if you are inside Canada submitting a PR application, if you have completed your medicals within the last 5 years for any visit visa, work permits, study permits, open work permits, doesn't matter. If you have completed your medicals within the last 5 years as of the date of submitting your application, 5 years back from that, you have the medical completion report, you have the UMI IME number, then you don't need to do your medicals again, unless IRCC asks you to redo your medicals. So you can submit those medicals. That policy is still there, so you will not have to do your medicals for that. That's basically what I have for you today. Connect with us on social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, of course. But hold on, we have a few other things to talk about as well. And the one thing that I do want to talk to you about is, let's discuss about the category-based draws. I know there has been so much of speculation, there has been so much of talks, and people who book consultations with me, so many of them are asking questions about category-based draws. So I just wanted to sort of lift the air of this one, or sort of clear the air of this one. And first and foremost, category-based draws have not yet happened. They have never, actually there is precedence. They used to happen pre-express entry era, the older immigration process, whereby IRCC had a list of priority occupations, but as long as you were eligible, you had Canadian experience, you had the priority occupation, you could submit your PR application. It was quite simple, straightforward. With express entry, things are not the same. How will the category-based draws happen? When will the categories-based draws happen? I don't know. And so does nobody else out there except IRCC. And of course, they're not going to tell you that. When can we expect the express entry draws, the category-based draws? Well, we can expect them from the next week onwards. And when I say next week, I mean 21st of June, which is the official start of summers in Canada. Because the IRCC notification, the Sean Fraser's advisory, said that the category-based draws will start from summer. So summer, because summer is going to be a few months, the first day of summer is 21st of June. Therefore, any day from there on, category-based draws can start. Ironically, 21st of June is also Wednesday when we actually expect the round of draws for express entry. So this Wednesday, when it happens, is going to be more jittery than on any other day, because we can anticipate if this draws will also start on that day. Now, how will they be conducted? Again, I don't know. Nobody knows. There is only speculation. IRCC has already identified 6 different categories, and in those categories, they've already mentioned what the NOC codes are. I think there are about 80 to 83 NOC codes that have been identified in 5 different categories. And then there is one category of French speakers only. Would they conduct a draw for all categories at the same time? I don't know. Would they conduct the draw for categories and express entry general draw at the same time? I don't know. Would they do it simultaneously? Nobody knows. What I'm trying to tell you is that at this point of time, instead of freaking out what kind of draws, how it will happen, when it will happen, just wait it out. Because no matter how many times you discuss this, no matter how many times you ask this question, nobody can really tell you, because there is no precedence on this kind of a draw. So you'll have to just wait and see and watch how the draws are conducted. From there on, as and how we progress, we would be in a better state to make some wild guesses to see, okay, these are the kind of draws that they have been conducting. This is how they will happen. However, in my opinion, they don't have a lot of invitations left for this year. I think they have roughly about 30 to 35. If I'm being very optimistic, maybe 35,000, optimistic. But 30 to 35,000 invitations are remaining, ITAs in express entry, because they have already issued more than 50,000 approximately for this year already. And this is only the middle of June. So we still have about 6.5 months to go. And with 6.5 months to go, if they have only 30 to 35,000 invitations, means they would be roughly issuing about 5,000 ITAs per month, give or take a few. Again, we cannot have the exact number. With only 5,000 ITAs per month, each draw would have anywhere between 3 to 2.5 to 3,000, or 2.5 to 3,500. I don't expect more than that. At some point of time, they keep putting a gap or a pause in the draws. Is that to regulate the number of ITAs? Is that to sort of, probably to regulate the number of ITAs, to balance out how many invitations they can issue, how many are still in the pool, how many are still in the bank. Plus, there is this also huge calculation of how many people decline their ITAs, how many applications get rejected, and those ITAs come back to them, sort of, so they can issue them again. So that percentage is never known. Nobody knows exactly how many people are declining their ITAs, how many people are getting rejected, how many people are getting refused. All that data will only come to us a year and a half, year later. So as of right now, the average calculation based on the past few years is roughly about 32 to 34% is the total number of applications, ITAs that are declined, refused, rejected. And if you calculate that, that's how we come to the total number of ITAs expected for this year. At this point of time, fingers are crossed. Obviously, it's no more a surprise or a shock that people can expect that category-based draws are going to happen. They are here to stay. They will be happening. For the time being, the category-based draws are specific to the NOC codes. In my opinion only, I have a feeling that they would also overlap it with some component of a program. So what I mean by that is, first of all, in order to be eligible in the category-based draws, you have to be eligible in express entry under a specific program. Federal Skilled Worker, Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Trade. First, these three. You first have to be eligible in one of these three programs. Express entry is not a program. It's a simple file management tool, something like a CRM, if you want to call that. Because of this management tool not being a program, you first need to be eligible in one of the three programs. As I said, CAC, FSW, FSTC. Only after being eligible in these three programs, then the next step is your category-based draw. That's where the categories, that's when you have to be in a category. Your primary, the IRCC hasn't mentioned primary NOC code. I am saying primary NOC code, and the reason why I say primary NOC code has to be the category NOC code, because if you read the text of the express entry, it says, how would you like us to base your application? Choose your primary NOC code. Therefore, and the term by itself, primary NOC code, basically means that is how your application should be decided or assessed. Primary NOC code is how your federal skilled worker eligibility selection points are identified as to you having continuous work experience in that NOC code. For Canadian Experience Class, there is no requirement of continuous work experience. So your NOC code could be any of your work periods. And therefore, choosing the right category, choosing the right NOC code is going to be very, very important. But we'll have to wait and see how these selections are made. But as long as you've identified your NOC code correctly, you fall into the right category, you have at least 6 months of work experience in that NOC code. 6 months is, as I said, I was telling you that in my opinion, I feel that there's going to be an overlap. And I feel that while they're selecting category-based draws, they will also put an overlap, saying that we are inviting STEM occupations, 1,000 invitations issued, STEM occupations, plus they should also have 1 year of work experience in Canada. Or they should be Canadian Experience Class, STEM occupations, 1,000 invitations, something of that sort. But it's a mere speculation. So let's wait and watch as to how that unravels, how that plays out. And until such time, your guess is as good as mine. So that was the category-based draws discussion. If you're still here, hit on that boop on that like button so we can get more and more people watching this video. And at the same point of time, don't forget to subscribe, because you want to see the subscriptions go up, right? And of course, we have a Instagram channel as well. So yeah, follow us on Instagram, because more and more good content keeps coming out through there as well. If you wish to make an appointment one-on-one to discuss about your application, your queries, your concerns, and that is the link. If you're interested in any of our services, then that's the email address to reach out to us on, okay? Now, let's get cracking with some of your questions. I'm not sure how many can I finish in the time that I have, but we will try to do as many as possible. Augustine, thank you for the super chat, but there is no question there, so really can't do much with that. Sorry. Okay, Mindfree, thank you for the super chat. Please confirm that points for work experience count under implied status till the day initial fake postgraduate work permit extension application was refused with interim work authorization. Great question. When you are on an implied status, it basically means you are on a legal valid status. Your work experience on an implied status is absolutely valid. It has already been clarified on the IRCC websites as well. So you can claim that period of work experience. However, if you applied for a fake extension, which fake extension, for people who do not know, is that, for example, if your postgraduate work permit was expiring on 31st of December 2022, at that point of time, there was no. If let's say your work permit was expiring on 10th of January 2023, On that date, there was no public policy for extension of work permits for 2023. People have applied for fake extension, means they were not eligible, but they applied for extension anyways. They applied for extension on the 8th of January, 9th of January, 7th of January, whatever the date might be, before the expiry of their work permit. Now they have come onto an implied status, because that's what the law allows you to do, to be on. You're on an implied legal valid status, which basically means you can continue working until the decision is rendered. Because IRCC was taking such a long time, people got 4 or 5 months to work until a decision was made. So an application that was made on, let's say, 7th, 8th of January would have only received the decision only in the month of May end sometime. Then in April came the public policy whereby postgraduate work permit holders whose work permits were expiring anywhere from 2021 September onwards until whole year of 2023, they could apply under the public policy to apply for postgraduate work permit extension. So now, because you knew that your previous one was a fake extension, you could now apply under the public policy, but you also now received an interim work authorization from IRCC saying, hey, you know what, you can continue working, no problem, and you can continue working. But this interim work authorization did not give you status in Canada. It just gave you authorization to work. What that meant was you have status because of the fake extension that you applied for. That gave you status and authorization to work. The minute you got a refusal on your first work permit, which was the fake work permit extension that you filed, you have now lost status. You do not have status anymore. You are now in the interim. You can still continue to work because you have the interim work authorization, but you no longer have status. But you've also already applied for the new work permit, which basically means only after you have received the new work permit approval, you will now have a proper legal valid status again in Canada. Until such time, you do not have status, but you can continue working because you have the interim work authorization. This interim work authorization, this period now between the first extension refusal and the new work permit being approved, while you can work, but this period of work you cannot claim points for because you have not got a valid status in Canada. I hope that makes it very, very clear, because this is going to be very confusing for a lot of people as they go in future and they start submitting their express entry applications. If you do not have status, that period of work is not counted for Canadian experience class. Fake extension gave you legal valid status as implied status or maintained status. Your work experience is counted, can be counted. Now, if you do not have status, you can still work if you have interim work authorization, but that period of work cannot be counted for your Canadian experience. Hope that clarifies. All right, Human says, will the federal government extend the public policy that allows international students to work full-time in 2024? I don't know, and I don't think at this point of time that's going to happen. And the reason why I don't think is because all these measures were being taken because of COVID. And because of the COVID still having an impact until 2022, that's why these provisions were being extended. However, I don't see anything of this sort happening anymore. And therefore, I don't see this being extended to full time in 2024. I mean, that's me, right? My opinion. Whether IRCC chooses to do something different, we don't know. We'll have to wait and watch. The tracker shows COPR, but there is no RFV email, and this has been 2 weeks now. What can he do? Nothing. You cannot do anything. You just need to wait. Even if the tracker shows COPR, it only basically means your application on the back end has probably been approved. However, the RFV, ready for visa emails, are sent out as batch processing. They are not sent out the minute the application is processed. So they are sent out in batch processings, RFV, PPR emails. You will have to wait till the next batch processing is done for that visa office who is processing the application. And that is when they will receive. Also keep an eye on the spam folder. Sometimes the emails get caught over there, and that's how it will work. Do you deal with USA immigration? No, I don't. I only love and specialize in Canadian immigration because that's where I live. That's what I like. That's what I like to do. I have zero understanding, zero clue about how US immigration works, except for the fact that I do have a visa. It allows me to go and come there. That's all. Okay. After my EAPR, if my spouse just landed as a visitor and changed plans to stay in, what would be the process to change spouse to accompanying in PR application? after my EAPR. So in your EAPR, why was your spouse not accompanying you? Okay. But yes, at any point of time, if you wish to change your spouse to accompanying from non-accompanying in your PR application, you will have to raise a web form and you have to inform IRCC. They would send you certain forms. You'll have to pay the fee, and that's how your spouse will be added as accompanying. Mind you, your scores can change if you are already married on the day your EAPR was submitted. So your scores may then now change as married, and if the new score is calculated as a score which is lower than the drawn score, then that may become an issue. When will Ontario conduct HCP draw? I'm sitting at 392. I don't know. And under the human capital priorities draw, 392 could get very, very tricky. So you should try and improve your scores. But when will they conduct a draw? They don't announce when are they conducting their draws or their schedule of the draws. Applications beyond the processing times are considered unwanted. Really? I didn't know that. To Canadian immigration, and means systematically that there will be rejection coming as response for them. I am not sure where that is coming from. I'm not sure what is the basis for you to say that. And I'm not even sure if you're asking me or if you're telling me. So first of all, there has to be a logic in saying something of that sort. Why would IRCC take your application, not work on them, and then reject them because they're not working on them? That has happened with some visit visa applications earlier because of the backlogs during COVID. But IRCC has always come back and said, please reapply. As far as the normal PR applications are concerned, if they have gone beyond the processing times, then in a lot of cases, there is a reason for that. For that, you should order the GCMS notes to figure out why is it that your application is not being processed on time. But to make a blanket statement like that without any evidence to support something of that sort, or logic for that matter to support that, it doesn't help. I'm trying to create an express entry profile, but I am not sure which NOC code to choose as my primary. Duties mentioned in my experience letter are matching two different NOC codes. How do I choose the main NOC code? Well, you will always choose the NOC code based, excuse me. NOC codes are always chosen based on your job description or your duties or responsibilities, and never as per the job title. Now, if you come to a point where your NOC code is overlapping into different NOC codes, or your job description is overlapping into different NOC codes, what you should be doing is first check the lead statement of the NOC code. It's the small summary that appears right on top after the NOC code. See what it says. See what kind of industries, kind of businesses, what kind of companies it is talking about that this person in this NOC code would be working at. It will also give you a brief understanding of what this person's complete role would be in this particular job description. So compare the two different NOC codes and see which one is a better match. That's the one way to go about it. Second would be to see the different job titles as they are the samples or they are the examples of different, and see if that is a better match. Third would be to see which one is a more, because there will always be something which is more matching to your job description. Both cannot be exactly the same. There is a reason why you're choosing more. Why there's a reason why there is an overlap. So you have to look at the complete picture. Whichever one matches the most, whichever one has the most likelihood in terms of the examples of the titles, in terms of the lead statement, and in terms of the job description, then that would probably be your job NOC code, and that is how you should go about it. Okay, what else have we got? Local currency in my country depreciated by nearly 50% this week. How does that impact proof of funds that just got their ITAs? Well, it impacts a lot. You now basically need to have 50% more proof of funds. That's how it impacts. And you've just got your ITA, means you haven't even submitted your PR application. So means on the day you are submitting your PR application, your proof of fund is dropped by 50%. So now you need to first upgrade your proof of funds, so basically add to that amount. Because this money will be coming into your account now, you will need to prove the source of this funds. The money cannot be borrowed. That is the primary foundation principle of proof of funds. The money has to be yours. It can be gifted. You could sort of sell off an asset. You could dispose of or rather liquidate your funds, investments, and that's where the funds or the money can be coming into your account from. You will have to prove the source of these funds. And my suggestion, and a strong one, is if you come from a country where there is a lot of ups and downs of your exchange rate, a lot of ongoing fluctuation in the exchange rate, always add a screenshot of the Bank of Canada or the Reserve Bank of your country's exchange rate for that day, equivalent to the Canadian dollars, to show that you have sufficient proof of funds on that day, and add that as part of your application proof of fund documentation. The reason why I say that is, for example, Pakistan, India, Egypt, there are lots of other countries in Africa where the proof of fund or the currency fluctuation can be quite significant, can be quite drastic on some days, right? Once you have provided IRCC, either with a letter from the bank, and the bank's letter clearly says that the proof of the available funds are equivalent to Canadian dollars so much on this date, IRCC will accept that amount. Or you are providing IRCC with a screenshot of the exchange rate on that particular day with your proof of funds, then IRCC will also accept that. But if you do not provide anything, and when IRCC receives your documents and application, and then they start looking at it, and there is no exchange rate provided, then they go back to the computer and check what is the exchange rate today, that day, when they're assessing their application. And if the funds are not looking right, then that becomes a concern. That will be a review required. They may either ask you to provide updated funds, or they might send you a PFL saying that you haven't got sufficient funds. Now, I know there are two schools of thought with this. Some, because there is no definitive direct answer provided by IRCC anywhere, the law doesn't define the exchange rate anywhere. Therefore, the two schools of thought are, the one school of thought says that the exchange rate is fixed on the day you submit the application. And another school of thought, which is my school of thought also, is that the exchange rate is calculated on the day the application is assessed. And the reason why I come from the second school of thought is because we have reviewed countless GCMS notes, and I've posted those GCMS notes and the scripts, and the excerpts from that on several social media platforms as well, where IRCC has very clearly assessed the funds and the exchange rate on the day they were assessing that document or that application, which absolutely says that that is what they're referring. So either they will refer to the document that you provide, which is a credible document which says this is the exchange rate, so they will take it, they will accept it as of the day you submit the application. But if you haven't provided anything, the bank letter does not give the Canadian dollar equivalency, you haven't given the exchange rate equivalency, then they would assess it on the day they are submitting the application. That's the school of thought I come from. So my suggestion to avoid these kind of situations is, it's a simple thing, right? Just slap a exchange rate screenshot and you're good to go. That's the suggestion. That's what I've always followed, and that usually works. Okay. Do you think category-based draws would have initial high score and then it will get reduced in subsequent draws? Score is 469. Any hope? Well, yes. If they have formed categories and if they conduct the draws within those categories over a period of time, depending on the number of people who keep getting added into those categories, the scores would reduce, right? That is the general understanding of how the pools work. But yes, of course, the scores would reduce within those categories as well. Holding a CSQ without accompanying spouse, could I apply to express entry with an accompanying spouse? Is it risky? No, it's not risky. You can absolutely do that. That is not an issue at all in express entry. Planning to get married soon after receiving PPR. How many days does IRCC give a candidate to notify them about the marriage after PPR or COPR in order to add the spouse? There is no timeline or time limit given to you. You have an open timeline, provided you update IRCC before you land in Canada or become a PR in Canada. So once you have your COPR will have a validity date. This validity date is for you to arrive in Canada for the first time. That's when you activate your status. So you need to inform IRCC before this particular date that there has been a change in your family composition, because then IRCC will take its time to come back to you, send you the application kit. You will then update those forms that are required from you to update your spouse and your family composition. And once they will then approve your application, again, they will send you another passport request, whereby you will have to return your COPR. They will cancel the old COPR, issue a new COPR, which will have an updated marital status and your spouse's name as dependent. They will also issue the same passport request will also name your spouse, or will basically ask you to send your spouse's documents as well. And your spouse will also be issued with a COPR. Your scores will not change because you got married after your EAPR, which is the day your points for your civil status gets locked. So that's the way you'll go about doing it. There is no timeline for it. Okay, lots of questions still there. Let's see, we can. Joshua says the Canadian population has reached the same number as the population in Kerala. I would not disagree, though I don't know what is the population of Kerala, but yeah, probably. I mean, I think Delhi NCR is about 40 million as well, if somebody can confirm that. But yes, that's about the same number there. Do you think SIMP score will come down to 63? I cannot tell you whether the score will come down to 63 or not. I think it's quite difficult because it all depends on how many NOC codes they're choosing to invite and how many people of that NOC code are there in the pool. But I would not hold my breath at 63. Instead, you should try and improve your scores as much as possible. Rania says, I wanted to ask about AIP Nova Scotia. I got endorsement and then submitted file to IRCC in March this year for PR. It's been more than 3 months, no AOR. Is there any hope further in this case? If yes, then how much time will it take? As on the website, it says 5 months from the day IRCC received the file. Atlantic Immigration Program is actually quite fast. If you haven't received, if it's been 3 months, you haven't received the AOR, I wouldn't freak out. And 5 months that has been mentioned in the website is the average processing time. Doesn't mean every single application get processed in the same point of time. But I wouldn't really lose any hope for sure. You have received the endorsement, you have submitted a good application. In most cases, you would go through. Once you get the AOR, from there on, the process is quite fast. So just have a little bit of patience and wait it out. You will get through. I mean, you've already completed the biggest of the hurdles, which is getting the endorsement letter. From here on, it's pretty much smooth sailing, just a matter of time. Okay, what else have we got? Saskatchewan OID paper-based. Is it forbidden to have an EE profile and for the other provinces, but do not want to use it for Saskatchewan? I need more time for my child to finish school before moving to Canada. Absolutely not forbidden. You can definitely have an express entry profile. You can choose to not have a express entry stream in Saskatchewan. You can choose to go with an OID stream. There is no problem. Nothing is forbidden of this sort. However, if obviously you are going to be applying to a different province after having applied to Saskatchewan, then you would have to disclose it to the other province that you already applied to Saskatchewan. Because having two applications for provincial nomination at the same point. Now, mind you, I'm saying applications. I'm not saying expressions of interest. Creating your profile is expression of interest. Getting invited and then submitting your application is called application. So if you have two applications to two different provinces at the same point of time, then those are contradicting each other, because the basic fundamental premise of you making an application to a province is that you intend to live and reside in that province. So if you have told Saskatchewan, I intend to reside in this province, and now you have another application with Nova Scotia saying, I want to live in this province, you are now contradicting your intention to reside in two different provinces. And therefore, you have to clarify. So you will draw one application, go with the other one, or you basically tell the other province that you already have an application with the province, which basically defeats the whole purpose of applying to the other province, right? So yeah, that's the logic, that's the thought, and therefore that's how you should proceed. Okay, it says I have gotten. Okay. After how much days for COPR after passport submission? I do not know the exact timeline of individual passport offices, but I would say about 15 to 30 days. That's how much it should take. Right. For some reason, something seems to have gotten stuck. Not sure what that would be. But hey, if I haven't been able to answer your questions, by all means, please post them in the comment section below. I will be happy to come back and respond to your questions. Thank you so much for joining in. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Yeah. And if you wish to book an appointment, then that is the link. This is the email address if you want to reach out to us to handle any of your applications. We do also handle refugee cases. We handle applications for HNC, humanitarian and compassionate grounds. We handle applications for detention reviews. Hopefully, if you get detained for whatever the reason might be. And we also handle appeals in the IRB Immigration Refugee Board. And if you are in any of those situations, want to discuss, consult, then please by all means do. Thank you so much for joining in. It has been a pleasure again doing this episode, and I shall see you soon. Take care.